What's up? What's up, everybody? It's Artis Anderson here, your TRM leader. I hope you're feeling good because I'm feeling great. It is relationship talk time. Tonight, on Wednesday, the 10th of March, we're going to be talking about marriage and relationships tonight. Very important subject matter, as always, because we do relationships every single day in every aspect of our lives, even if it's with ourselves. And so on every Wednesday this month, we're going to be talking about marriage and relationships on the topic of relationships die without this, okay? And so I'm excited to be talking about this subject. And before we get into our information tonight, I want to make sure I answer questions that were sent. We have a few questions that were sent in, and so I want to make sure I answer those. But come on in, those that are watching, come on in. Share it with somebody, tell somebody to hop on, because we're going to get into some good stuff tonight. I got my water mixed with my I forgot what you call this thing, electrolytes or something, I don't know. Amino acids. Make sure you're hydrated, make sure you're replenished and things of that nature. And so tonight we're going to be talking about relationships die without this, part 2. And the thing that we're talking about is love. And we're going in depth about what love is, okay? So that we can implement this information into our relationships as individuals and collectively as well. And so as we dive into this topic, I want us to be able to take away these few things. What is love? What does it look like? How can I understand it? How can I process it? How do I implement it? All these different types of things, right? But in large part, what we just simply want to be able to do is show people what real love is, ultimately speaking, right? And then once we know what real love is, we can understand how our relationships die without this component called love. And so we never want to take relationships for granted, okay? Relationships are a precious gift, and I encourage everybody to take them serious and do not take them for granted, because you never want to be that person that loses something valuable, wishing you had done something different when you had the opportunity to do something different. And so let's jump into these questions first and foremost. All right. So the first question we have on tonight is, sorry, I got to read through it so I don't read it wrong. Is there a clear-cut way for one to know when they should move forward in a relationship or let it go? Is there a clear-cut way for one to know when they should move forward in a relationship or let it go? Great question. Number one, relationships are a choice. We can never forget that, right? So anything that's a choice is hard to determine, especially with relationships, whether or not something is a clear-cut way to determine something, right? I think it's safe to say that if there is abuse, that's clear-cut. You need to move on from that. If there is any type of abuse, that is, if there's any type of domestic violence, physical abuse, and things of that nature, those are clear-cut things that you should move away from relationship-wise. But outside of that, it's hard to determine what is a clear-cut way because everybody has their own standards and expectations. So I think the better way to explain it is the only clear-cut way for each individual is to determine what is your standard, what is your expectation, and what is your goal. And if two people are not seeing eye to eye on the goal or the progression of the trajectory of that relationship, then it's time to go your separate ways. If somebody is not meeting your expectations, it's time to go your separate ways. If somebody is not living up to your standards, it's time you go your separate ways. And it's not always a bad thing to go your separate ways, okay? What you don't want to do is spend years and years and years in a relationship that you don't see a future in, that you don't have your expectations met in, that you don't have your standards met in, okay? And so just simply answering the question, outside of abuse or anything of that nature like abuse, there is really no clear-cut way. Everything is a chance, everything is a choice, but the best chance you have at success or of knowing is by making sure that you take the time to communicate what you want, communicate your expectations, see if those expectations and standards will be lived up to. And then after a certain amount of time that you deem or you give, you can say, hey, this ain't really it. It's time for me to walk away. So it's up to the individual to be able to determine that. So it's important that you understand, really the answer is up to each individual, okay? One of the clear-cut ways to know is if this standard is not met, if this expectation is not met, okay, then it's time for me to walk away. But only you know when that time is. Some people like to give a little bit more time to see if it's going to change, to see if it's going to develop, to see if it's going to grow, but that's all up to the individual, okay? Question number 2. How important is finances when it comes to marriage? Great question. I think this is a multi-part question, so I'm going to make sure I answer each part. How important is finances when it comes to marriage? Wow, finances are important, period. In a marriage, you have, mortgage to pay, rent to pay, you have light bills, utility bills, gas in the car, groceries, insurance. So you need money to operate your family, okay? You need money to operate your family. So how important is finances in the marriage? Very important, extremely important, okay? The next part of that same question is, should you wait until you are more financially stable to marry? Should you wait till you're more financially stable to marry? On one hand, that is very wise to do. On the other hand, it's not necessary. I think it all depends on the maturity and the work ethic of the two people in the marriage. If somebody has a strong work ethic and a drive, then I think that work ethic will reap rewards for you and your spouse and vice versa. I think if you have two people that understand that, hey, this is what we have to do, I think there is no limit to what they can accomplish together. There is no limit to what they can do, and things of that nature. So achievement is well in the realm of possibility. So I would say you don't have to wait till you're financially stable to get married, because the question becomes, how much money is enough money? How do you gauge that? Is it gauged on your bills? Is it gauged on your vision? Is it gauged on your business? Is it gauged on your dreams? So each individual will have to answer that question within their own relationship. But the bottom line is that you don't have to be financially stable to get married. You just have to have a plan of how you're going to meet the required budget of your family so that you can have the living necessities that it takes to live out that marriage. So the next part of the question is, which spouse should be in control of the finances and budgeting? Great question. Well, the individual that should be in charge of the finances and budgeting is the one who knows how to budget the best. The one who is financially responsible, the one who is financially consistent, the one who is financially in a position to not necessarily pay the bills, but they're in a position mentally to be able to manage everything that's going in, everything that's going out, and things of that nature. So it doesn't matter who that is, the man or the woman, who's ever the best at it, they should be doing it. It's not about gender. It's about who's the best, who manages money the best, who does this the best. And if the husband is better, he should do it. If the wife is better, she should do it. If both of them are equally good at it, they can partner up and do it. So there is no specific way. It's just whatever is way is best for you and your family and your spouse. How do you make financial decisions with your spouse? Again, that depends on the individuals. Some people say, hey, I want my spouse to make all the decisions. I don't want to think about it. That's fine. Some people say, hey, I want to be included in the decision. That's fine. It all depends on what works for you two, right? But I would say this, financial decisions. How do you make financial decisions with your spouse? You make them understanding whatever the goal is and whatever the foundation is. So for example, if you lay out a financial budget for your family and the household, you're making decisions based on that budget. You're not making decisions based on the individual. You're making decisions based on the budget. So if the husband says, hey, I want to go on this trip, and the budget says you can't, then the financial decisions are made by the budget, not necessarily the spouse. If the wife says, I want to, get a massage every week, well, does the budget allow for that? If not, then the budget has made the decision. So the best way to make financial decisions with your spouse is to understand that we need to take the decision out of the individual's hands and put it in the budget's hands, put it in the financial records hands. What are we able to do? And then from there, if you're able to spend or have extra money to use each month, then you can decide, okay, we got $500 left over this month that we can spend. $250 goes to me, $250 goes to you. I think that's the fair way to do it. Or your spouse might say, hey, listen, I don't want to do nothing this month. You take the whole 500. Cool, that's fine too. But the goal is to make sure that it's a partnership. So there should be two people's needs being met, okay? All right, and I think the next question we have, my husband and I are really great friends. We're really great friends for years before we got into a relationship. For us, it has been our foundation. Do you think a friendship is a component in relationships that's needed, or is it not necessary? Friendship is 100% necessary. Friendship is 100% necessary in a marriage and in a relationship. Friends are people you like being around. Friends are people you like doing life with. Friends are people you don't mind spending time with. How can you be married to someone who is not your friend? Somebody you don't want to be around, somebody you don't really like that. So I would say it is very necessary for you to have for your spouse to be your friend as well. So I just want to say that is very, very, very important. Okay. All right. So that ends our questions. Let's jump right into this information. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Okay. This is Relationships Die Without This, part 2. And we're talking about love. Okay, we're talking about love. 1 Corinthians, if I can find it myself, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Let's look at verse 4. Last week we talked about this. Love is patient. Okay, so love is patient. Love is patient. We dove into that last week. Okay, but this week we're going to dive into hopefully a few more, depending on the time. But the next thing it says, love is kind. Love is kind. Love is kind. Okay? So before I jump into that, we understand that some foundational things need to be said. A relationship is a gift. Marriage is a gift. They are not gifts for you to play with because people are not toys. Okay? People are not toys. Okay? So it's important that we understand that people are not toys. Marriage and relationships are a privilege. It's a privilege that God allows us to partake in, okay? And being with an individual is an honor. It is a privilege, okay? It's a privilege. Now, let's dive into this. Love is kind. Love is kind. Let's look at another scripture. Proverbs 11. Let's go to Proverbs 11, okay? And let's dive into this. Proverbs 11. The pages stop sticking together. Proverbs 11, verse 17. It says, your kindness will reward you, but your cruelty will destroy you. So your kindness will reward you. See, if there's no kindness in your marriage or in your relationship, there is no reward coming back to you. There is no reward coming back to the person who is not kind. So if you want good things to return to you in your marriage or your relationship, guess what you need to know? You need kindness. And we're going to dive into what kindness is. But we know that love is patient. And now today we know that love is kind. So if you are not a kind person, you don't understand love. If you are not a patient person, you don't understand love. And that's why we're having these conversations, to really dive into this. So what is the biblical definition of love? Or just the general definition? Kindness is basically this: to show oneself mild. To show oneself mild. You know, when you order food, they ask you, do you want it mild, medium, or hot? Right? So basically, kindness is like that lower mid-range, you know, not like the hot where it's spicy and it's a kick to it, and it's like a, you know, feisty and type of thing, right? Mild. It's like you're calm, you're relaxed, you're gentle. It's a softness to it, okay? Now, but here's what's interesting, right? Mild means not severe, serious, or harsh. So mild means not harsh. So now the question becomes, what does harsh mean? It is an unpleasantly rough or jarring to the senses. It's an unpleasant, rough shaking of the senses, okay? So when somebody is not kind, what happens is that lack of kindness, however way it comes out, it becomes a shaking and a jarring to your senses, okay? Your sight, your sound, and your touch. Somebody who is not kind, right? If you're not a kind person, your body language, when we see your body language, it causes us to be on guard, like, oh, you know, what's wrong? Like, what did I do? Man, like their energy is off, you know, their vibe is off. It's like your body language is telling us, because we can see it. Your body language is in our visual. We see that, like, oh, like, I guess, you know, something was said that was, you know, whatever. So kindness can be seen, just like harshness can be seen, right? It's in your facial expressions, etc., right? So in your sound or your touch, okay? When you speak harshly to somebody, that affects a person. When you speak harshly to your mate or your marriage or your partner or your spouse, right? I always try to figure out what word I'm gonna say, right? Is it gonna be spouse? Is it gonna be significant other? But significant others, it's like you don't want to keep saying significant other. So I'm just gonna say partner, right? But in a marriage or a relationship, your spouse or your partner, if you are harsh to them, it hits their ears, and that sound affects their internal place, okay? And so now you throw them off with the harshness of your words and things of that nature, your tone, okay? So understand that kindness is to be mild. To be mild, right? It means to be not severe or not harsh, okay? And harsh means to be an unpleasant or a jarring or a shaking of the senses. So basically, there needs to be kindness to the other person when it comes to how we hear, what we see, sound, and touch. If you grab somebody by the arm, that's not a kind way to touch someone, okay? That's not a kind way to touch someone. So if you're in a partnership or a marriage, if you touch somebody the wrong way, it can really be an energy mover. It can really be a vibe changer. It can really be an issue or a problem or create an issue. The same way if I say something the wrong way, in a harsh way, who you talking to like that? Like that type of response, right? So we have to understand that a person who is not kind is going to do a lot of jarring of people's senses. They're going to do a lot of changing environments based on what they say and how they move and how they touch and things of that nature. Your speech should not be harsh to your partner. Your speech should not be harsh to your partner. If you don't know how to talk to your spouse, if you don't know how to talk to the person you're in a relationship with, that is an issue, because now you are lacking kindness. Kindness is the ability to talk properly to the person in a way that is receptible. Your responses should not be harsh. You ever be in a conversation with somebody and they respond in a mean way? See, it's because they're lacking kindness, okay? So if you lack kindness, you lack love. And if you lack love, your relationship is going to die. Your approach shouldn't be harsh. When you approach a conversation, when you approach a situation, when you approach any type of thing in your marriage or your relationship, there shouldn't be a harshness to it. It should be a kindness to it. Your tone, ladies and gentlemen, your tone, hear me clearly. Your tone needs to be kind, even if you're mad, even if you're upset, even if you're frustrated, even if you're irritated. There is no excuse. You need to have self-control, no matter how you're feeling, and still be able to speak kindly to someone, okay? Your body language shouldn't be harsh. Your facial expression shouldn't be harsh. So understand what kindness is. Kindness is the ability from head to toe to be able to deal with yourself in a controlled manner and respond in the proper way. So when we talk about kindness, we're talking about a very essence of a nature of a character trait that the Bible is telling us that, hey, without love, your relationships are going to struggle. Without love, anything you do is going to struggle. So what is that love? Love is patient. Love is kind. And that's what we're talking about tonight. What are some of the traits of kindness? Some of the traits of kindness. A thoughtful person. A person who is not thoughtful is struggling in their kindness. See, when somebody, so you have people that are naturally givers, right? They'll cook for you. They'll give you little gifts. They will do things. It's just who they are. It's their makeup. And then you have people who don't do it at all. They might do it once a month. They might, do it every now and then. So the degree level is depending on the thought level. A kind person is a thoughtful person. What does a thoughtful person do? A thoughtful person is considerate. A thoughtful person is accommodating. A thoughtful person is aware. A thoughtful person doesn't mind bowing in the situation, okay? Or humbling themselves, right? Sorry, I did not mean to do that. All right, sorry, we are back live. All right, we're back. Let me do this so that doesn't happen again. All right, here we go. So a thoughtful person is considerate and accommodating. They are aware of the person, how they feel. They are aware. They are in tune with the situation if something is happening. So kindness is about being selfless. Kindness is about compassion. Kindness is about sympathy and empathy. And when you lack these important traits, your relationships are going to suffer. Your marriage is going to suffer. See, a lot of times you think because you feel some type of way or because you're mad that you don't got to be kind, that somebody has to be understanding to you. The reality is the situation, for example, just because somebody mad at you, does that mean they can cheat on you? So why do you think anything should change just because you're mad? Like, you still need to be able to exude kindness and gentleness, right? So we have to stop making excuses for our lack of kindness. We have to stop making excuses for us not being considerate or thoughtful or humble or selfless, okay? We have to stop making excuses for not being these things. One of the things you have to understand is that you have to develop yourself as a person. If you are not willing to develop as a person, you do not care about the person you're married to. You do not care about anything else but yourself. When you put off development, you are selfish. When you put off self-improvement, you are selfish. When you refuse to get help, you are selfish. When you refuse to do what it takes to be the best individual you can be, it is a slap in the face to God. It is a slap in the face to your spouse. It is a slap in the face to the people around you. And this can apply to friendships, business partners. It can apply to colleagues. All of this applies to any type of relationship. We're just simply talking about marriage and relationships tonight. But the reality is this, is that if you're not a thoughtful person, you're not going to consider the other person and the damage you're causing or creating by not dealing with yourself and your issues of not being the best person you can be. You have to develop in character. You have to. Part of developing in character is understanding that you are not more important than anybody. You are not more important than anybody. We are all equally important, okay? Being kind often requires courage and strength. And most of all, here it goes, humility. Humility. See, you don't get to be mean just because somebody did something to you. You don't get to act a fool just because somebody did something to you. There is no excuse, past, present, or future, for any of the behavior that is not kind. There's no excuse, okay? You might have your reasons, but it is inexcusable. Why? Because we are all responsible for our own actions. And what we have to stop doing in our community and in our culture is accepting certain behavior as okay. Now, we have to understand that there's sympathy and empathy because we have to display kindness, but we can be very clear that this is unacceptable. It will not be tolerated, but I understand that you went through something. I understand that you're going through something. But just because you're going through something, you don't have to take it out on people. You don't have to mistreat people, especially your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, right? Why is that important? It's important to understand that if the other person sees that you're going through something, but you're doing everything you can not to take it out on them, and you're doing what you need to do to make sure they don't suffer, then that's a beautiful thing. And that person now knows that this person cares about you, that this person is displaying love, okay? So it's important that we understand that. Kindness is an interpersonal skill. Kindness is an interpersonal skill that you have to develop. You have to work at that. You have to allow yourself the space and the patience to become interpersonal and understand that kindness is a skill, okay? To be kind, okay, is to be humane. I think sometimes we do overcomplicate things relationally, especially in marriage. We cannot forget that you're human, okay? We're human. So there needs to be an understanding of situations and circumstances and dynamics. And kindness is how that we do that, okay? So when we look at certain things, when somebody is kind, that equates to considerate. Being considerate simply means showing awareness to another person's feelings and circumstances. That's all it is. Being kind to somebody is saying, I understand your circumstance, and I want you to know that. That's all it is. So when you're being kind to someone, more importantly in your relationship or in your marriage, what you have to understand is this, is that at all times you need to lead with kindness. Excuse me, I was burping. You need to lead with kindness. You need to lead with kindness. If you cannot do that, there's going to be a lot of friction in your marriage and in your relationship. Because remember, as I said in the beginning, when you start to trigger somebody, based on what they hear, based on what is said, based on how you touch, when you start to trigger somebody, it starts to affect their mood. It starts to affect how they feel. We understand that people respond well to gentleness and softness and kindness, okay? So when we look at this dynamic, even if we look at Philippians chapter 2, right? And it's important that we utilize this scripture to really teach us how to be better relationally, okay? Philippians 2, okay? Verse 3, don't be selfish. Don't be selfish. That's the first verse. Don't be selfish. Don't be selfish. Don't be selfish. So what does this mean? Kindness is the ability to put someone else's feelings first. Selfish people can't do that. Selfish people tend to always revert back to them. Selfish people don't hear what you got to say. It's all about what they feel and what they experience. Selfish people tend to focus on themselves more than anybody else. You can be talking about a subject matter, and as soon as you bring up your issue, they talk about the issue they got with you. They just disregard what you said. Soon as a conversation is happening, what do? Get defensive. They start deflecting. That's what selfish people do. It's not a kindness trait. When you're a selfish individual, it's hard for kindness to really come through and really shine through in your marriage and relationships, okay? Because kindness is not just about what you do, it's about the character of who you are. It's about the DNA and makeup of who you are. So it's bigger than just what you do. It is the mindset and the mentality behind what you do also, okay? Your kindness is defined as the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate. Okay, so here's that word again, considerate. But it is defined as the quality of being friendly and generous. When you're kind to your spouse or your partner, it is a choice to always help them understand that, hey, I love you, and I want you to know that I'm here for you. It's hard to do that when your tone is off. It's hard to do that when your body language is off, right? A lot of times we want people to understand that we're there for them. We want people to understand that we got their back. We want people to know that we love them. Yet we're mean to them. We talk to them any kind of way. We treat them any kind of way. We take our anger out on them. None of that is kindness traits. None of that is love. None of it is love, okay? So your relationships and marriage should be between two people willing to show kindness. It can't be a one-side street. Why do relationships die without love? Here's why. Because love has the ingredients to make the whole cake work, period. Without the ingredients, there is no love. So you need the ingredients that makes up this whole thing called love. And that's why we're talking about it. Without love, your relationship and your marriage will die. It'll die slowly, it'll die fast. It'll die medium speed, however you want. It will die. Why? Because love is the only thing that keeps relationships alive. It's the only thing. And so kindness can mean different things to different people. And that becomes the issue we have when it comes to kindness. We all define it differently. This is why I encourage people to not go off your definition of kindness, but to go off God's definition of kindness. How does God define kindness? Well, let's read it again. He defines it as to be mild, to be gentle. We talked about the mild, medium, hot. If you order chicken wings somewhere, right? They say, hey, do you want that mild, medium, or hot? Mild is the least spicy. Hot is the most spicy. And how do we equate spiciness? Somebody who is a firecracker, somebody who is flying off the handle, somebody who is, quick to jump off, the ledge when it comes to situations, or, they're quick to get angry, quick to get frustrated, and quick to get irritated. All of those different issues are when somebody is not allowing kindness to dwell in them and take over them rather than every other trait, right? So we have to define kindness by God's standard, not our standard. Because if we have different definitions of what a kind person is, then we're not going to be able to see eye to eye, and our marriage and our relationship will die because we don't see eye to eye. That's the whole concept of being equally yoked, okay? So, man, time is flying by fast. So let's look at this. The meaning is in how you choose to show it. Kindness can mean different things to different people. Kindness can mean different things to different people. But the meaning is in how you choose to show it. It ain't about nobody else. How do you show kindness? Is your kindness conditional? That's not love. Is your kindness conditional based on if they treat me kind, if they treat me? See, it's not love. True love is unconditional. Genuine love is unconditional. Okay? So let's work through this. If you have a different definition of kindness than God and the other person, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be a struggle. But the meaning in is how you choose to show it. Okay? Do you choose to show your kindness through your tone, your touch, right? Making sure your body language is communicating the same thing your words are. And that's another issue. A lot of times people's body language is not communicating the same message as their words. And that's why people are confused. You can say, I love you, and say it in a way that your body language is saying, nah, I really don't love you. I'm just saying it just to say it. And that is a very real thing, okay? That is a very real thing. So when we understand this dynamic, right, this is what we need to know, okay? How do you choose to show your kindness? Is it by being gentle? Is it by being empathetic? Is it acceptance? Is it a kind gesture? Like, kind gestures go a long way. Write a love note. Tell somebody you appreciate them, right? Kind gestures is also understanding that if somebody else is upset, that you don't have to get upset, people. It's okay for that person to be upset and express themselves without you getting upset. What is the point of you getting upset just because somebody else is upset and is expressing themselves? Especially my fellas. Fellas, our women are gentle creatures. How can they ever trust to talk to you or care, to share with you if every time they say something, you on edge? Come on, man. We got to do better. We got to do better, man. We got to do better. Okay? But shout out to all my men. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all dearly. But we have to make sure our women have a safe space to share and vent and talk. Okay? Now, let me see. Where are we? So the possibilities of how we show kindness is totally up to you. My word of wisdom would be all of the above. Don't pick and choose how you want to show your kindness. Show it in multiple ways, many different aspects, as much as possible, okay? Kindness might not look like being helpful or showing empathy. It may mean doing nice things without expecting anything in return, okay? Kindness goes beyond merely being nice, and that's one of the points I wanna highlight. Kindness is bigger than just being nice. Kindness is bigger than just being nice. There's more to it. Being kind is doing the very things intentionally without looking for a payback. That is what it means to be kind. Here's the other part. Being kind is not being kind conditionally, like I said before. There should not be a condition on your kindness. Your kindness should be simply because you are choosing to be kind out of the kindness of your heart and the content of your character and the makeup of your DNA based on your thought process. Okay? Your inner self has to be kind in order for kindness to be able to shine through you. And only God can empower you to become kind. Only God can really do that work internally to really change how you are, okay? And with your permission, he's willing to help you do that with a thing called grace. The grace of God empowers you to be kind and gentle and to change some of those rough things about you, to change some of those things about you that is not necessarily a part of your makeup that God has made you to be, okay? Kindness is when you can be kind when a person doesn't deserve it. Kindness is when you can be kind when a person doesn't deserve it. That's what it means to be kind. When a person doesn't deserve it, can you still extend that type of love? So whenever we talk about patience, whenever we talk about kindness or any other character or derivative of love, what we're really saying is love. These are just different words that really mean love. because love is patient, love is kind, right? So the reality is, kindness is when you can be kind to a person who doesn't deserve it. Sometimes your spouse does not deserve your kindness, but you give it anyway. Sometimes your spouse or your significant other does not deserve your kindness, but you give it to them anyway. Okay? When it's not expected of you is the most important time to be kind. When it's not expected, that is the most important. So your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend may do something off the wall and it might make you hot. That's the time to be kind because they know, oh man, I done screwed up. They about to be mad at me. Imagine if you just came through the door and said, I love you. It's okay. Let's talk about this. In a very kind, mild-mannered way. It goes a long way. It's a powerful tool, okay? Kindness is equivalent to grace, okay? Jesus gave us grace, right? We make mistakes, we have our issues, and Jesus took care of all of that, okay? Out of the kindness of his heart, out of his own love, he did that for us, okay? Does your kindness show when your spouse makes a mistake? Or do you punish them? Does your spouse, right, do you show kindness to your spouse when they screw up, or do you punish them? Do you show kindness when they really made you upset? Do you show it? Is your kindness conditional? See how that keeps coming up? Everybody wants somebody who can love unconditionally, right? Everybody wants somebody who can love unconditionally, but yet, can you love unconditionally? Is there a stipulation on your love? We have to be able to be what we desire to receive. We have to be able to give what we desire to receive, okay? This means thinking, understanding, assessing, right? All of these things are a byproduct of how we go about with our kindness. Are we able to mild ourselves down? I know that was a bad phrase. Are we able to remain mild-mannered and think? Are we able to remain calm and mild-mannered and process? To understand, to assess a matter, to assess a situation. Are we able to do that? Okay? Are we able to do that, right? That's going to take some practice. Yeah, it takes practice, right? But the encouraging part is this: it's possible. What we have to be able to do is understand that whatever we want our marriage to look like, we have to inject that. That is the important piece I'm really trying to get through. If love is patient and love is kind, if you want your marriage to be a marriage or a relationship full of patience and kindness, you have to inject it in times of frustration, irritation, disappointment, anger, circumstance. You have to inject that. If you want your meat to taste like a certain flavor, you have to inject the meat into the marinade sauce and let it simmer so that it can become a part of the food, so that the flavor pops, right, when you eat it. You have to make sure that you are infusing your relationship and your marriage with kindness. You have to make sure. But what if prime example, real question. What if my spouse is not doing it? Well, you have to do it. It's not about what your spouse is doing. Because guess what? If your spouse not doing it, if your boyfriend or girlfriend not doing it, and you not doing it, your relationship is about to die. Your marriage is about to die. You have to inject and infuse the very thing into your marriage that you want to see. If you want to see more giving, you have to give more. If you want more loving, you got to give more loving. If you want more sex, you got to give more sex. If you want more patience, you got to give more patience, okay? So it's important that you understand that. Guess what? You ain't know. Sure if I understand the question. Fresh News 247. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Rephrase it for me so I can answer it. And so the reality is this, right? Is that when we're talking about kindness in our relationships, okay? When we talk about kindness in our marriages, what we have to be able to understand is, right? If we cannot infuse this inside of our marriage or relationship, we can't expect to see it, okay? Is it okay to hit on a single gay guy when you're married? So I would say if you are married, it is not okay to step out on your marriage, period, okay? If you are married, it is not okay to step outside of your marriage. What I would say is if you are in a marriage, okay, because it's a great question. If you're in a marriage and the other person doesn't know that you like both sex, guess what? You need to have that conversation, okay? But you need to honor your marriage, right? I'm a component, I believe in male and female marriage, okay? That's my belief system. So if somebody is in a marriage and they do have a bisexual tendency or feeling, I would encourage that person to seek out counsel about that so that they can manage that issue. But I will say this, stepping out on your marriage is not an appropriate thing to do. Why? Because inside of marriage, there is a covenant, and we want to make sure we honor God's promise inside of that marriage. So I would say, no, it is not okay to do that. We have a follow-up question. All right, so what if your wife says it's okay to go with a guy because she knows you're not gay and will only be there for the sex and not the emotional love? I don't all the way understand the question, but I will answer it based on what I believe you're asking, okay? I think we're dealing with a rooted issue. And I think what you're asking is it okay to go seek out what you need outside of your marriage, okay? Hey, Crystal, what I would say is that whatever you need, you want to find that within your marriage. And that's why we need to learn how to communicate a lot better, right? And a lot of times we get to these situations to where we're going outside of our marriage to seek out a thing. Why? Because we have not implemented the love that the marriage needs to sustain itself. So what happens? The marriage or the relationship dies. So this is why this conversation is so important. If I need to go outside of my marriage to find emotional love, there's a lack of emotional connection in my marriage, and I have to do what it takes to get the connection back in my marriage. It's not about me finding the answer outside of my marriage. It's about me finding the answer within my marriage. I might need to go outside of my marriage to get counseling. I might need to go outside of my marriage to get some advice. I might need to go outside of my marriage to get some from some credible friends, from some credible individuals about how I can go about something, right? But the issue is I don't want to resort to the response or the symptoms of a problem. I want to deal with the actual root of a problem. I want to know why the person is coughing. I can give you cough medicine, but what if we can just cure the cough? I understand that there's a fever. You can take medicine for the fever, but why don't we just figure out what's causing the fever and get rid of that? So relationships become a dynamic of complex situations, circumstances, problems, good things, bad things, and those things begin to what? Create different dynamics that we have to work through. How do you work through them? Effective communication. Effective communication. How do I deal with an issue that is lacking in my marriage? Let me say it a better way. How do I deal with something that I am lacking inside of my marriage? Well, I have to communicate what I'm lacking. And then I have to deal with the feelings of how it made me feel, whether it's rejection, abandonment, ugly, right? Whatever it made me feel, I have to deal with those feelings. I have to communicate them, even if I have to go seek help, okay? Appreciate that, Astor. Even if I have to go seek help. The goal is to fix the problem in my marriage, not try to go fix my personal issue on my own outside my marriage. See, here we go. A lot of times when we have issues in our marriage, people who get weak and they get fed up and they get tired, they go outside of their marriage to deal with their personal issue. But no. We need to deal with the issue in the marriage between the two people. Because if I go outside the marriage to go deal with my issue, when I come back to the marriage, I've created more issues because now I have went outside of the marriage to deal with my personal issue. So now we have to understand that it's not about going outside the marriage, it's about dealing with the issue within the marriage the appropriate way, okay? We have another question. How can you push your spouse to grow financially and career-wise without it being offensive? All right, let me get to that question. Let me finish off with this kindness real quick, and then I'm gonna answer that right away, okay? That's a great question. So the last part of this kindness thing I wanna say is this, okay? If we could all remember that nobody is perfect, okay? And that we all could be a lot kinder to each other, offering grace, right? Understanding that being kind is a trait that our marriage needs from us. Kindness is a character thing that our marriage and our relationships need from the individual. Two individuals bringing kindness to the table, it infuses that into the marriage and the relationship so that the relationship can live. It is the food, it is the oxygen to the marriage and the relationship, right? So becoming more kind is a byproduct of you becoming more aware of the fact that your attitude might be an issue. Because attitude, I haven't talked about that, but real quick, kindness typically is absent from people who have attitude problems. Kindness typically is the absence of kindness is because of, Lord, I'm getting tongue-tied. The absence of kindness is a lot of times due to the attitude issue of the individual. If you have a bad attitude, you're going to struggle with kindness, period. So how do you deal with that? Fix your attitude, and there's ways to do that. I don't have time to go into all of those ways tonight, but what I will say is this. If you need to seek counseling, do that, right? Start to write out, why do you have attitude issues? Write in a journal, say, what is the cause of my attitude issues? What is the start of my attitude issue? Why am I so short-tempered? Why am I so impatient? Why am I so nasty with my responses? Why is my body language and my facial expressions always looking mean or uninviting or don't bother me? Like, what is the issue with the fact that when I'm upset, I'm snappy at people? I'm like, I'm snapping. I'm always like going at somebody about, what is it about my attitude and my issues that cause my attitude to exude a lack of kindness, right? This is how we begin to process. We have to first acknowledge it, then accept it, and then find ways to deal with it. And one of those ways that I just highlighted was begin to write out the origin of it. Does it come from my parents? Does it come from my brother and sister? Did I develop it from the neighborhood I grew up in? Is it because of this person hurt me and that changed my attitude? However it started, begin there and then write out how it began to grow and how your attitude became this overbearing thing about your personality. And then from there, you began to exercise it. The only way to become kind is by doing kindness, being kind, and then letting God work on you. Humble yourself and ask God, hey, God, I need to do this. I need to become more kind. I can't do it on my own. By your grace, give me the strength to begin to be more kind and put it into practice so that it can become a part of my DNA and part of my character, okay? And so kindness is necessary so that your relationships and your marriage lives. All right, let me get to this question. How can you push your spouse to grow financially and career-wise without it being offensive? All right, so let's deal with that word in your question. The word push. The word push can mean multiple different things. So I don't know the tone of how you're asking it. I'm just reading it. And I know you're not asking it in a mean way. But the word push is what I would try to ask myself. Am I pushing somebody to do something that they don't want to do? Okay, that's the number one question. Am I pushing somebody to do something they don't want to do? Okay, if they want to do it, now we have a different question. If you want to do this, does my pushing, become a problem? Am I pushing them too fast? Am I pushing them too in a way that is uncomfortable for them? So how do I do it without being offensive? You ask them, hey, if I were to encourage you or motivate you or try to push you in this area to grow, how can I do that without it being offensive? You ask them, what does that look like for them so they can communicate with you? Hey, listen, I don't like it when people do this or say this to me or speak to me like this in regards to anything. So if you want to push me or encourage me, do it like this. And then you tell them, okay, thank you for letting me know. I'm gonna make sure I do that. And now you have a basis for how you can motivate them, right? For example, some people do not deal with direct honesty very well. Some people say, hey, you need to ease your way into it with me because I get upset easily and I don't receive it well. All right, thank you for communicating that. So if I need to bring something honest to them, guess what? I can't just come direct and raw. I have to ease my way into it. I have to be gentle. I have to be kind. And I have to understand that this person needs it to be done this way specifically for their own reasoning. Okay, so the way you push or motivate or encourage your spouse to grow financially and career-wise is by first sitting down and asking them, hey, I feel the unction. I feel motivated to encourage you and push you, to get to where you want to be. I want to be your motivation. All of that is great, but you need to know how can they receive it. That's how you do it without it being offensive. Get their insight on what that looks like so that you know how to go about it. All right, so that concludes the hour. I appreciate everybody that has tuned in. If we don't have any more questions, because I can answer those questions if need be, but if we don't have any more questions, we are going to wrap up. And I want to close by saying this. Relationships are a gift, okay? Relationships are a gift. If you are in a marriage or relationship, treat it with kindness. You have to inject and put the very thing in your marriage and relationship that you want to get out of it, okay? So remember that and understand that at the end of the day, your marriage and relationship will only have what you put in it, okay? Love y'all. See y'all soon. And see you all again next Wednesday. Love y'all. Oh, and real quick, for those that are watching, I need you to do one quick favor. Go to tryforeverlove4.com, okay? Check out the site. Book a session if you need to, okay? Also, if you want, I want you to do me a favor. Let me pull up the number because it's a new number and I don't remember it by heart. So charge it to my head, okay? But I want you to text Forever Love, the number 4, text Forever Love to 833-663-0733. Text Forever Love to 833-663-0733. That's the number 4, Ever Love, spelled out normal. Text us, let us connect with you. A lot of encouragement with relationships and wisdom and advice going out to you directly. Appreciate you all. Love you all. See y'all soon.